The Battle of Ravencross lasted 3 days and 3 nights. When it ended, the city was saved. Barely. The Pale Court was driven back into the forests. The Devourer's manifestation was destroyed, and the Fractured Gods' reassembly was prevented. Thane killed in the final assault. 6 of the 7 divine fragments scattered once more. But victory tastes like ash when you count the cost. 73 practitioners died. 212 civilians. Half the city reduced to rubble. And the surviving defenders are too exhausted, too wounded, too broken to celebrate. They won a battle. The war has only just begun. If you are enjoying this story, kindly hit the like and subscribe button and tell us where you are watching from. Thank you. 5 years later, the kingdom of Valdris has transformed into something unprecedented. Not the centralized tyranny of the Arcanum. Not the chaotic freedom that followed. Something between. Something new. The network, as it's come to be called, spans the entire kingdom. Autonomous cells of practitioners coordinate through communication crystals and traveling messengers. Each cell maintains its own authority, its own methods, its own identity. But when threats emerge, they unite. Share resources. Combine power. It's messy, inefficient, requires constant negotiation and compromise. Arguments break out over jurisdiction, methodology, resource allocation. Some cells refuse to work with others due to philosophical differences or personal grudges. But it works. Somehow, impossibly, it works. Sera stands on the walls of Ravencross, rebuilt, reinforced, transformed into the network's unofficial capital, and surveys a kingdom that has learned to protect itself without submitting to masters. She is 28 now. The echo in her mind has become less separate voice, more integrated perspective. She can no longer tell where her thoughts end and the borrowed memories begin. Doesn't particularly care. The distinction stopped matching somewhere around the 100th battle. Her hair has gone prematurely silver at the temples. Her hands bear scars from hundreds of castings. Her eyes shift between violet, gold, and brown depending on how much power she's channeling. She looks like what she is, a weapon that chose to be wielded for something greater than itself. Cale approaches from behind, his footsteps familiar enough that she doesn't turn. He's aged better than she has, or perhaps hidden it better. His former guilt has transmuted into determined competence. He runs the network's training programs, teaching new practitioners how to survive the threats that never stop coming. Another seal failed last night, he says without preamble. In the southern marshlands, the scouts report something new. Not the Devourer, not the Pale Court. Something else. Sera's stomach sinks. Something else. There are always more somethings. The Arcanum imprisoned dozens of entities over 3 centuries. Each seal's failure releases another nightmare. What are we looking at? Cale hands her a report. His expression is grim. The locals are calling it the rot. It spreads through living things, breaking down organic matter into component elements. One touch, and you start dissolving from the inside out. So far, it's consumed 3 villages. 700 dead in 2 days. Sera reads the report. Studies crude sketches of the rot's manifestation. A creeping corruption that looks like mold but moves with purpose, that infects on contact, that leaves nothing but chemical residue where people once stood. Mobilize the southern cells, she says. Full quarantine protocols. No one enters the infected zone without protective wards. And send for Ren. If this thing spreads, we'll need his expertise. Cale nods. Already done. He's 3 days out, finishing up with that Pale Court incursion on the eastern border. Sera allows herself a moment of pride. The network has become efficient despite its messiness. People have learned to anticipate, to coordinate, to function as a distributed organism rather than a hierarchical structure. Then her communication crystal flares with urgent red light. Emergency signal. From the Remnant's sanctuary. Sera and Cale exchange looks. The sanctuary has never sent an emergency signal. Never. It's the network's most secure location, most heavily defended, most carefully hidden. If it's in danger, nothing is safe. Sera doesn't run. Runs into teleportation circle carved into the wall's stone. Cale follows. She activates the circle with a gesture, and reality folds around them. They emerge in the sanctuary's central chamber to find chaos. Not battle. Worse. Betrayal. Half the remnants lie dead or dying. The great map of Valdris burns with unnatural fire. And standing in the center of it all, surrounded by a dozen practitioners wearing black robes marked with silver runes, is someone Sera recognizes. Lissa, one of the network's founding members. A survivor of Ravencross. Someone Sera trusted absolutely. Her face is serene, almost peaceful, as though she's finally discovered something she's been searching for. When she speaks, her voice carries certainty that borders on religious fervor. The network has failed. 5 years of struggle, and the threats keep coming. The seals keep failing. How many more battles can we win before we lose one that matters? How many more people have to die before we admit the truth? Sera's hands ignite with crimson flame. Lissa, what have you done? What needed to be done, Lissa says. What the weak and the foolish refuse to accept. The Arcanum was right. Not about tyranny, about necessity. Some threats can only be faced with centralized power. Some decisions can only be made by those willing to make them. The black-robed practitioners around her raise their hands in unison. Their magic doesn't feel like the warm, living power Sera wields. It feels cold, efficient, familiar. Arcanum magic. Sera's blood runs cold. You've been learning from them. From the survivors. Not learning, Lissa corrects. Serving. The High Magister, the Masked One, the Oracle, they've been watching. Waiting. Building a new Arcanum from those of us wise enough to see that freedom is just another word for chaos. She gestures, and the black-robed practitioners attack. Not with raw power, with precision. Arcanum technique refined over centuries. Barriers that can't be broken by force alone. Attacks that target weak points in magical defenses. Counters to every common spell in the network's arsenal. Sera and Kale fight back, but they're outnumbered and caught by surprise. Sera's crimson flames pour forth, but Lissa's people have prepared for her. They've studied her style, identified her patterns, developed counters specifically for the Echo's power. A barrier traps Sera in a sphere of crystallized time, slowing her movements to near stillness. Kale is hit with a spell that inverts his magic, turning his defensive barriers into prisons that trap him. They're going to lose. Then the sanctuary's walls explode inward, and Ren arrives riding a bolt of lightning. He's changed in 5 years. Less wild, more focused. His armor has been replaced with simpler leathers, but the lightning dancing around him is more controlled, more deadly. He's become what his sister never had the chance to be, a master of his craft. His entrance breaks Lissa's formation. 3 of her black-robed practitioners are thrown backward by the shockwave. The time prison around Sera cracks. Sera pours crimson fire into the cracks, shattering them. Breaks free, joins Ren in the assault. Lissa's expression doesn't change. She simply gestures again, and more black-robed figures emerge from the sanctuary's tunnels. Dozens of them. The network has been infiltrated deeply, thoroughly, by people who've decided that freedom isn't worth its cost. The battle that follows is brutal. Not the desperate struggle against inhuman threats, but practitioners killing practitioners. Former allies turning on each other. The network devouring itself. Sera fights with the Echo's full power, becoming less herself and more conduit with each passing moment. Crimson flames burn hot enough to crack stone. Her movements blur beyond human perception. She is magnificent and terrible and slowly losing what makes her who she is. Kale breaks free from his inverted barriers, turns them against Lissa's people. Former Arcanum technique used against Neo-Arcanum practitioners. Symmetry with teeth. Ren's lightning forks and branches, striking multiple targets simultaneously. He's learned to maintain constant assault, to never give opponents time to regroup or counter. But Lissa's people keep coming. And they're not trying to win, they're trying to delay. Sera realizes this too late. The sanctuary's core, the power source that maintains all the communication crystals, all the teleportation circles, all the coordination that makes the network function, begins to destabilize. Lissa's people aren't here to conquer. They're here to destroy, to prove that distributed power is fragile, that the network can be shattered with a single coordinated strike. To prove the Arcanum's point, Sera abandons the fight, runs toward the core. But Lissa is faster, already there, hands pressed against the pulsing crystal that powers everything. You can't stop this, Lissa says. The moment I die, the spell completes. The core shatters. The network falls apart. And the kingdom will beg for someone to restore order. Sera's flames intensify until they burn white. Then I won't kill you. I'll trap you. Hold you in stasis until we find another way. Lissa's smile is sad. You still don't understand. This isn't about me. It's about inevitability. The Arcanum doesn't need to conquer you. You'll become them all on your own. Because when the threats get bad enough, when the casualties pile high enough, you'll realize that hierarchy isn't tyranny, it's survival. She releases the spell. The core doesn't shatter immediately. It begins a cascade failure. 5 minutes until complete destabilization. 5 minutes to evacuate the sanctuary or be consumed in an explosion that will crater the region. Sera grabs Lissa, wraps her in crimson fire that doesn't burn but holds, binds her in magic that will take hours to break. Everyone out. Now. The remaining remnants flee through teleportation circles, through tunnel exits, through any means of escape. Kale and Ren help the wounded, drag the dying, refuse to leave anyone behind. Sera stays at the core, hands pressed against it, trying to slow the cascade. The echo in her mind offers knowledge, technique, power. But it's not enough. The Arcanum built this core. Only Arcanum knowledge can repair it. Knowledge she doesn't have. The core's light intensifies. 3 minutes remaining. Then a voice, dry, ancient, amused, speaks from behind her. You need help, child of the fallen house. How fortunate that we've arrived. Sera turns to find 3 figures standing in the sanctuary's ruins. The High Magister, restored to full power, emerald eyes burning. The masked Magister, her ancient face hidden once more behind woven moonlight. The elderly Oracle, empty eyes leaking darkness. The Arcanum has returned. The High Magister steps forward, studying the failing core with professional interest. Sloppy work. Lissa has passion but lacks precision. This will explode in 2 minutes now, not 5. Fascinating how incompetence accelerates entropy. Sera's flames intensify, but she can't leave the core. Can't fight them and stabilize the cascade simultaneously. Why are you here? The High Magister's smile is almost gentle. To offer a choice. Let the core fail. Let the network collapse. Watch the kingdom descend into chaos that will make our rule look merciful by comparison. Or accept our help. Let us stabilize the core. Prove that we're not your enemies, we're your solution. That the Arcanum isn't tyranny when you choose it willingly. It's not a choice, Sera spits. It's a trap. All choices are traps, the masked Magister says. The question is which cage you prefer. Sera looks at the core, at the spreading cracks, at the light that's becoming unstable. She could pour all of the echo's power into it, might be able to hold it together through pure force of will. But it would consume her entirely, would erase what remains of Sera and leave only the echo, only the memory of a dead girl piloting a borrowed body. Some sacrifices are too great. She steps back from the core. The High Magister moves forward, places both hands on the crystal. His magic is nothing like the warm power Sera wields. It's cold, precise, surgical. He doesn't heal the core so much as command it to stop failing. And it obeys. Because Arcanum magic was built on authority, on hierarchy, on the principle that power flows from top to bottom. The cascade halts. The light stabilizes. The core continues functioning as though nothing happened. The High Magister steps back, dusting off his hands. There. Crisis averted. You're welcome. Sera wants to attack, to burn them where they stand. But Kale and Ren are returning with the evacuees. Dozens of witnesses who just saw the Arcanum save them when the network couldn't save itself. The optics are devastating. The High Magister addresses the crowd. We don't ask for gratitude. Don't demand submission. We simply offer assistance to those wise enough to accept it. The network is noble in its intentions, but noble intentions don't stop apocalypses. Perhaps it's time to consider that some problems require solutions you've been too proud to embrace. He turns, and the 3 Magisters walk toward the exit. Pause at the threshold. When you're ready to discuss a partnership, not surrender, partnership, you know where to find us. They vanish into darkness, leaving behind confusion, fear, and the seed of doubt they came to plant. The sanctuary is evacuated permanently. Too compromised, too vulnerable. The remnants scatter to other safe houses, other locations. But the damage is done. Lissa's betrayal and the Arcanum's intervention have cracked the network's unity. Cells that trusted each other implicitly now look at each other with suspicion. Arguments break out over whether the Arcanum's offer should be considered, whether centralized power might be necessary after all. Sera watches the network begin to fracture and feels the weight of failure crushing her. She's sitting in what used to be her quarters in Ravencross, staring at her hands, scarred, trembling, barely her own anymore, when Kale enters without knocking. "We have a bigger problem." "Of course we do," Sera says flatly. "Why wouldn't we?" Kale tosses a report on her desk. The 7th fragment of the fractured god. It's been found. Sera's exhaustion evaporates, replaced by cold dread. Where? The Northern Mountains. In a monastery that's been abandoned for 50 years. And someone's already there, trying to claim it. Who? The report doesn't say. But whoever they are, they've killed everyone we sent to investigate. Sera stands, summoning strength from reserves she didn't know she still had. Then we go ourselves. Stop them before they can gather all 7 fragments. Kale's expression is grave. If they succeed, if the god is reassembled, then everyone dies, Sera finishes. Arcanum, network, civilians, everyone. A pissed-off deity doesn't care about politics. Ren appears in the doorway. "Heard you're planning a suicide mission to the Northern Mountains." "I'm in." "It's not a suicide mission," Sera says. Ren's grin is sharp. "It's always a suicide mission with you. That's why it's fun." Despite everything, Sera almost smiles. "Gather whoever's willing to come. We leave at dawn." She looks at her hands again, at the scars, at the way they glow faintly with the echo's persistent fire. She's so tired. Has been fighting for 5 years without pause, without rest, without hope of true victory. Just an endless series of crises to manage, battles to survive, costs to pay. But what else can she do? Give up? Let the Arcanum win by default? Let the fractured god reassemble and destroy everything? Some people are built for peace. Sera has learned she's built for war. And war has come again. The monastery clings to the mountainside like a wound that won't heal. Built 500 years ago by an order of monks who sought to contemplate divine mysteries. It was abandoned when the Arcanum rose to power. The magisters didn't appreciate competition in the supernatural knowledge business. Now it serves as tomb and temple to something that should have stayed buried. Sera, Kale, Ren, and 15 other practitioners approach at dawn. The path is treacherous, the wind bitter, the air thin. But what makes the journey truly terrible is the feeling, a pressure that builds with each step closer, a sense of something vast and aware and angry watching their approach. The god's presence, even fragmented, is overwhelming. They find the monastery's gates open. Not broken, opened from within, as though welcoming them. An invitation to their own destruction. Inside, the halls are filled with bodies. The reconnaissance teams. 30 practitioners who came to investigate and died for their curiosity. They haven't been killed by normal means. No wounds, no blood, no signs of struggle. They simply stopped being alive, as though the concept of life was removed from them like a word erased from a sentence. Divine power. Absolute and casual. Kale checks the bodies, confirms what they can all feel. Dead for less than 6 hours. Whoever claimed the fragment did this recently. A voice echoes through the monastery's halls. Not spoken, impressed directly into their minds with force that makes ears bleed. 30 came. 30 fell. Now 16 more. How many must die before you learn? The voice is male and female and neither, young and old and ageless, singular and plural simultaneously. It's the voice of something that existed before language and resents being forced to use it. Sera's hands ignite. Show yourself. I am everywhere you are. In every breath. Every heartbeat. Every thought you think is yours, but isn't. A figure emerges from the shadows. Not the one speaking. The voice comes from everywhere, but the one who summoned it. They wear robes of black and gold, face hidden behind a mask of hammered metal. But their hands are visible, and they hold the 7th fragment of the fractured god, a shard of crystallized divinity that pulses with light that makes the eyes ache. The masked figure speaks with their own voice, human and small compared to the gods. 6 fragments I've gathered over 5 years. 5 years of sacrifice, of service, of becoming worthy. Now the 7th is mine. Now the transformation begins. Remove the mask, Sera demands. Why? Will it change what I've become? Will it make you understand? The figure removes the mask. Sera's world tilts. It's Thomas, the village elder from Thornhaven. The man who helped her, trusted her, taught her when she first discovered the echo's power. His face is gaunt, aged beyond his years, marked with scars from repeated contact with divine fragments. But his eyes burn with fervent certainty. You're wondering why, Thomas says. Why someone who fought beside you would do this? The answer is simple. I saw the truth. The Arcanum, the network, your noble sacrifices. All of it is delaying the inevitable. The threats will never stop. The seals will keep failing. How many Thornhavens must burn before you accept that humanity is lost? So you destroy everything? Sera's voice shakes with betrayal and rage. I'd transform everything. The god promises transcendence. Evolution beyond our current limitations. A new form of existence that doesn't need defending because it can't be threatened. It's lying to you, Kale says. Gods don't offer gifts. They take tribute. Thomas's smile is serene. Then I'll pay the tribute gladly. Better to serve something greater than myself than to die defending a species too weak to save itself. He raises the seventh fragment, and the other six rise from where he's hidden them throughout the monastery. They float through walls, through stone, through reality itself, converging on the central hall. The fractured god is reassembling. Sera doesn't hesitate. Can't hesitate. Hesitation means the end of everything. She pours all of the echo's power into a single attack. Crimson fire that burns with the intensity of stars dying, of universes collapsing, of sacrifice absolute. It crosses the distance in an instant. Thomas doesn't defend. Simply stands there, smiling, as the fragments arrange themselves around him in a heptagonal formation. The fire strikes and stops, frozen in midair, held by divine power that makes mortal magic look like candlelight compared to the sun. The god's voice fills the monastery with such force that stone cracks. Did you think your borrowed embers could harm me? I am what was before your kind learned to shape fire. I am what will be when your last descendant forgets how to make light. The fragments begin to merge, flowing into each other like liquid metal. Thomas stands at the center, arms spread, welcoming transformation or destruction or both. Everyone attacks at once. 16 practitioners unleashing everything they have. Fire, lightning, barriers, transformations, void magic, life draining, reality warping. 5 years of network knowledge, technique, power. Everything the kingdom has learned about survival. It's not enough. Not even close. The god's presence grows with each fragment that merges. Space warps around it. Time becomes suggestion. The laws of physics apply only when convenient. The practitioner's attacks dissolve before they reach the god. Not blocked, unmade. Erased from causality as though they never existed. One practitioner is caught by the god's casual attention. They don't scream. Don't have time. Simply cease. Not dead, ceased. The difference is subtle and absolute. Then another. And another. 13 left. Then 10. Then 7. Sera realizes they can't win. The mathematics are impossible. They're mortals fighting a force that considers mortality itself an insult. But they can delay, can buy time, can prevent the god from leaving the monastery and wreaking destruction on the kingdom beyond. She makes a decision that will haunt her if she survives long enough to be haunted. Everyone else, run. Get out. Seal the monastery behind you. Don't let it follow. Kale's refusal is immediate. We're not leaving you. You are. That's an order. We don't take orders, Ren reminds her. Network principle. Sera's smile is bitter. Then consider it a request from someone who's out of options. I can hold it. Long enough for you to escape. But only if I don't have to worry about protecting anyone else. Kale understands. His face goes pale. No. There has to be another way. There isn't. You know there isn't. She pushes them toward the exit with force that's as much magic as physical. The remaining practitioners resist, but are too wounded, too exhausted to stand against her. Go, she screams. And remember this, the Arcanum is not the answer. Neither is chaos. Find the third path. Build something better. Don't let my death be for nothing like hers was. The echo in her mind stirs with approval and sorrow. This is how it ends. How it always was going to end. With sacrifice. With one person standing against the inevitable to buy time for others to escape. History repeating itself with different actors, but the same script. Kale and the others flee, tears streaming, rage and grief and helplessness written across their faces. Sera turns back to face the god. 6 fragments have merged into Thomas's body. He screams, not in pain, but in transformation. His flesh ripples. His bones reshape. His humanity burns away like morning fog, revealing something else beneath. Something that was never meant to walk mortal earth. The seventh fragment hovers just out of reach, the final piece needed for complete reassembly. Sera wraps the fragment in crimson fire, not attacking it, containing it, holding it away from the god's reach. The god notices her properly for the first time. Really notices, with full attention that feels like being observed by a mountain, by an ocean, by the concept of observation itself. Persistent insect. You cannot stop this. You can only choose how you end. Sera's reply is simple. Then I choose to end standing. She pours everything into holding the seventh fragment. All of the echo's power. All of her own strength. All of her life force if necessary. The god pushes back with force that cracks the monastery's foundation. Stone shatters. Walls collapse. The mountain itself groans under the weight of divine attention. But Sera holds. Impossible, miraculous, stubbornly holds. Because she is not just herself anymore. She is the echo made flesh. She is 5 years of battles survived. She is every person she's failed to save, every village burned, every practitioner who died believing the network could work. She is the continuation of a sacrifice made 10 years ago by a girl who chose death over tyranny. And she will not break. The god realizes this. Realizes that killing her will take time, effort, attention, resources better spent completing the reassembly. It makes a calculation. Cold, precise, divine, and withdraws. The pressure releases. The seventh fragment falls from Sera's grasp, tumbling toward Thomas's transforming body. Sera lunges for it. Fingers close around crystallized divinity. It burns. Not with heat, with meaning. With compressed existence too dense for mortal flesh to contain. She can feel it unmaking her from the inside out, replacing her cells with divine architecture. She holds on anyway. Speaks one word. A spell the echo taught her. A technique that should have died with the Arcanum's fall. Void seal. The fragment doesn't shatter. Doesn't disperse. Simply ceases to exist in this reality, pulled into a pocket dimension that exists outside causality. Gone. Not destroyed, but unreachable. Inaccessible even to divine power. For now. Eventually, someone will find a way to retrieve it. But, eventually, is a problem for people who survive today. The god screams. Not with voice, with pure rage made manifest. The monastery doesn't just collapse, it's erased. Stone turned to dust, turned to nothing. The mountain itself cracks, splits, avalanches tearing down slopes in waves of destruction. Sera falls into darkness, the echo's voice growing faint in her mind. You did well. Better than I ever did. Sleep now. You've earned it. Then nothing. Silence. Peace. For approximately 8 seconds. Then hands grip her, pulling her from rubble. Ren and Kale, who didn't run far enough, who came back despite her orders, who refused to let her die alone. They drag her from the destruction, away from the reforming god, incomplete, enraged, but still transforming Thomas into something that shouldn't exist. The god's voice follows them, diminished but still terrible. This changes nothing. I am still 6/7 whole. Still powerful enough to remake your species into something more useful. They run. Down the mountain, through paths that crumble behind them, chased by divine wrath and the knowledge that they've won a battle but lost the war. Because the god is awake. Incomplete but conscious. And it will hunt the seventh fragment across eternity if necessary. The kingdom faces a threat that the Arcanum couldn't stop, that the network can't defeat, that no mortal power can contain. And somewhere in the south, the 3 Arcanum magisters smile. Because disaster is opportunity. Fear is leverage. Desperation is the door through which tyranny returns. The pieces are falling exactly as planned. Sera wakes in a medical ward, wrapped in bandages and healing spells. Her body is broken in 17 places. The echo's voice in her mind is barely a whisper, drained nearly to nothing. But she's alive. Impossibly, stubbornly alive. Kale sits beside her bed, looking like he hasn't slept in days. You're awake. Thank the old gods. Don't thank them, Sera rasps. They're the ones trying to kill us. He almost smiles, then doesn't. Sera, we have a problem. Just one. She jokes weakly. He doesn't laugh. The network is fracturing. Half the cells want to fight the god. Half want to accept the Arcanum's help. And a significant minority are suggesting we surrender to the god, let it transform us, Take our chances with transcendence. Sera tries to sit up. Pain flares through her entire body. She collapses back. How long was I unconscious? 7 days. A lot can happen in 7 days. Apparently. Ren enters, carrying food he knows she won't eat. The political situation is worse than Kale's letting on. 3 cells have formally broken from the network. 4 more are in negotiations with the Arcanum. And the god has claimed the entire northern territory. Thousands have fled south. Thousands more have joined it willingly. Sera closes her eyes. We're losing. Not yet, Kale says. We still have options. Name one. Kale and Ren exchange looks. Then Kale speaks carefully. The Arcanum has made a formal offer. Alliance. Not submission, alliance. They help us fight the god. In exchange, we establish a joint authority structure. Network autonomy for normal operations, but centralized command during emergencies. It's the thin end of the wedge, Sera says. Give them an inch, they'll take the kingdom. Maybe, Ren says. But what's the alternative? Fight the god alone and lose. Watch humanity get transformed into something we wouldn't recognize? Sera wants to argue, wants to reject the offer outright, wants to find the third path that doesn't require choosing between tyranny and extinction. But she's so tired. And the options are narrowing. And the cost of pride might be measured in species death. I need to think, she says finally. You have 24 hours, Kale says. Then the network votes on the Arcanum's offer. With or without your input. He and Ren leave her alone with her thoughts, her pain, and the fading whisper of an echo that sounds more like goodbye than reassurance. Outside, the kingdom holds its breath. The god consolidates power in the north, transforming everything it touches. The Arcanum prepares for the network's inevitable capitulation. And somewhere in between, a third option might exist, if anyone is brave enough or desperate enough to find it. The 3 Arcanum magisters sit in a chamber that exists slightly outside normal space, reviewing reports and smiling. Everything proceeds according to plan, the High Magister says. The god is the perfect threat, too powerful to ignore, too dangerous to face alone. It practically hands us the kingdom on a platter. The masked magister's voice carries concern. What if they refuse? What if they choose extinction over our help? The High Magister's laugh is dry. Then we help anyway. Save them despite their stubbornness. Prove ourselves indispensable. Either way, the result is the same. The Arcanum returns. Older, wiser, better. And if the girl finds another way? The elderly oracle asks from the shadows. If she discovers what we've missed? The High Magister's smile doesn't waver. Then we learn from her before we eliminate her. But I'm not worried. There is no third way. There never has been. History proves this again and again. Order or chaos. Tyranny or extinction. Those are the options. The magisters return to their planning, confident in victory, certain of inevitability. They don't see the flaw in their logic. Don't see that history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Don't see that every generation finds new ways to solve old problems. Don't see the third option emerging from the very chaos they've cultivated. But they will. Soon. Because Sera is not done. Not defeated. Not ready to surrender. She's resting. Recovering. Preparing for what comes next. And what comes next will surprise everyone, including herself. Kindly subscribe for more.